The young and the restless spoiler's faith had always been strong. She had faced her share of struggles growing up in Genoa City, family feuds, scandals, heartbreaks, but nothing had prepared her for what was happening now. As she sat alone in her room, staring at the clock ticking away the hours, her heart ached with a familiar, overwhelming sense of dread. Days had passed since she last saw her mother, Sharon, and each passing moment made the distance between them feel greater. Sharon was losing herself, slipping deeper into madness, and Faith was terrified. Nick and Adam, ever the protective forces in her life, had tried to console her, but even they knew the truth. Faith was fragile, teetering on the edge of her own mental struggles. Both men worried that the emotional toll of Sharon's breakdown could push Faith into a dark place, perhaps even triggering depression or a more severe mental illness. And how could they not worry? Faith's young mind was already burdened with so much. Seeing her mother unravel so publicly and violently was a nightmare she couldn't escape. "She just needs to be okay," Faith whispered to herself, wiping away the tear that slid down her cheek. She couldn't shake the fear that her mother might never come back from the brink, that the version of Sharon she once knew was gone for good. Please, let her come home. Faith missed Sharon terribly. They had always shared a bond, one that was strong, loving, and often the source of strength in Faith's life. But now, Sharon was a stranger to her, consumed by an obsession with Cameron, a figure from her past that haunted her in the most horrifying way. Sharon's hallucinations, her dangerous behaviors, they were tearing their family apart. Nick had promised Faith that everything would be okay, but how could she believe that when her mother was off the rails, possibly planning something terrible? There were whispers around town, rumors that Sharon had been seen acting erratically. She had been disappearing for days at a time, sneaking into places she didn't belong. Nick and Mariah were trying their best to get Sharon the help she needed, but it seemed like their efforts were too little, too late. Faith's heart broke every time she thought about her mother, and all she wanted was to see her, to talk to her, to help bring her back to reality. But Faith wasn't the only one struggling. Across town, Daniel was spending an evening with his mother, Phyllis, and Summer. It was a rare moment of celebration for the trio, something that felt long overdue. After a period of professional success, they had gathered to toast to their accomplishments, to bask in the glow of the good fortune that had finally come their way. They laughed and shared stories, their spirits high as they relished in their victory. It was a stark contrast to what was happening. Unbeknownst to Daniel, Sharon had set her sights on him once again. Her mind, twisted and manipulated by the ghost of Cameron, had brought her to the point of no return. She had convinced herself that Daniel was a threat, perhaps not to her, but to the memory of Cassie, her beloved daughter. And that was enough to drive her over the edge. Sharon had broken into Daniel's house earlier that evening, her movements deliberate and calculated. She knew what she had come to do, and she wasn't leaving until her mission was complete. But what exactly was her plan? To kill him? To punish him for some imagined sin? The lines between reality and her hallucinations had blurred so completely that not even Sharon knew for sure. The only thing that was certain was that she had become dangerous. And as Sharon moved through the quiet halls of Daniel's home, intent on her dark task, the rest of Genoa City remained oblivious to the horror that was about to unfold. But while Sharon's personal war waged in the shadows, the broader battle in Genoa City was just heating up. Victor Newman, the titan of Newman Enterprises, had just received a message that sent a chill down his spine. Jill, the ever-powerful matriarch of the Abbott family, had reached out. She was returning to Genoa City, and she wasn't coming alone. She was coming with a plan to destroy Newman Enterprises. The return of Jill meant only one thing: war. Since Dina Mergeron's death, Jill had become the most formidable woman in Genoa City. Her cunning, intelligence, and relentless drive had positioned her as a force to be reckoned with. And now, with Victor and Newman Enterprises in her crosshairs, everyone knew that a storm was coming. Victor had faced countless enemies before, but Jill was different. She wasn't just some competitor looking for a leg up. Jill was methodical, strategic, and patient. She knew exactly how to strike. She had been waiting for the right moment to make her move, and now that the time had come, Victor was preparing for the fight of his life. Jill was no stranger to the power plays of Genoa City. She had built her empire brick by brick, and she wasn't about to let anyone stand in her way, not even Victor Newman. As she plotted her return, it became clear to everyone that Genoa City was about to be caught in the crossfire of a monumental corporate showdown. Jill's return was all the more shocking because of her reputation. She was known for being one of the most intelligent, resourceful, and ruthless women in the city. With Dina gone, Jill had stepped into her shoes as the queen of Genoa City's high society, and now, with Victor as her target, things were bound to get explosive. Victor, however, wasn't one to back down from a challenge. He had built Newman Enterprises into the powerhouse it was today, and he wasn't about to let anyone, especially Jill, tear it down. But the question remained, was Victor ready for what? As the tensions in Genoa City reached a boiling point, everyone was left wondering what Jill's return would mean for the power dynamics of the town. Would she succeed in toppling Newman Enterprises? Or would Victor, ever the master of the game, outmaneuver her like he had done with so many before? For Faith, however, the corporate wars of Genoa City were a distant concern. All she wanted was her mother back. She couldn't care less about the feuds between Jill and Victor, or the success of Daniel and his family. What mattered to her was Sharon, getting her home, getting her help, and saving her from the madness that was tearing her apart. As the night wore on, Faith found herself sitting alone in the living room, her phone clutched tightly in her hands. She was waiting for news, for something, anything that could bring her a sense of peace. But there was nothing, just silence. Sharon was still out there, lost in her own mind, and Faith could only hope that someone, whether it be Nick, Adam, or even Mariah, would find a way to bring her back before it was too late. But with Sharon on the brink of committing an unspeakable act, and with Jill's return shaking the foundations of Genoa City, it seemed that the chaos was only just beginning. The question now was, how long could Genoa City hold itself together before it all came crashing down? Kyle's silence was deafening. The weight of his betrayal pressed down on her, suffocating her. She had come all this way for nothing. Kyle had moved on, and now she was left with nothing but the broken pieces of her heart. Claire, standing off to the side, watched the scene unfold with a calm detachment. She wasn't threatened by Summer, not in the slightest. She knew where Kyle's heart lay, and it wasn't with his ex-wife. In that moment, Summer realized that she had lost. Not just Kyle, but herself. She had let her love for him consume her, blind her to the truth. And now, as she stood there, watching him with another woman, she felt the full weight of her choices crashing down around her. With one last tear-filled glance at Kyle, Summer turned and walked away, her heart heavy with the realization that the man she had loved was no longer hers.